It's Friday. It's 3 and Out. Glad you're with us here all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. So much to get to here on the show. We'll chat with Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk. We'll look at name, image, likeness coming in. Also the 12-team playoff, how that benefits. Certainly we've talked about other teams. What about a team like Clemson? Do they just feel like it's theirs? One spot every single year already taken up. We'll talk to him about that. Also, Matt Smith will join us on the program, southernpigskin.com, in hour number 2 as well. We'll look at some historic mile markers that are out there, the 10-year anniversary of Russell Wilson's graduate transfer, and who are some of the great grad transfers, and how we've seen just a proliferation of transfers in general here in just the last couple of seasons. So we'll talk about that. Gus Malzahn sounded off on the playoff in Central Florida, where he's at now, so we'll get to that on the show as well. But it is game 2 tonight. BJ and Ben, Hawks and Bucks. BJ's optimism, and I say that in parentheses, in a big way, was going, well, they won game 1, so, I mean, they'll probably lose game 2. But obviously everybody's hyped up about game 2 tonight against the Bucks. If the Hawks can go up 2-0, going back home to Atlanta, I mean, the historical data that says you're up 2-0 and the likelihood of you advancing forward in series like that, it's huge. But already, again, Hawks mission accomplished. You got one on the road to start it out.
A lot of pressure on Milwaukee tonight. What you mentioned. I think Atlanta should feel really comfortable and confident about where they are in the series. You've already flipped home court. You already have the momentum in your favor. And if you win tonight, I mean, Kevin, like you said, going back to the historical data, there aren't many precedents for overcoming a 2-0 deficit as a team that started out with home court advantage. So I think Atlanta just comes out, plays loose, not a lot of pressure, continue to play aggressively, confidently, and I think that you'll be in it late. But Milwaukee, you better bring your A game tonight, because you go down 0-2, you are in big trouble. I would expect, if I'm the Hawks, Ben, kind of maybe a desperate effort of sorts from the Bucks, where I think they're going to just bring everything they have early, try to set a tone right away. I think if you're Atlanta, try to absorb kind of that initial rush, and I think you'll be okay if you can stay competitive throughout maybe the first half of the first quarter.
Yeah, and the thing about what Trae Young and this young Hawks team do, they have a never say die attitude. I mean, you look at the fact they won game 1. It's not like they were winning at any point during that game. I mean, they was down going into halftime. They was down, obviously, going into the fourth quarter. They was down with like 2 or 3 minutes left in the game. But the Bucks are obviously going to give the Hawks everything they got. But I think when you look at what the Hawks bring to the table is, you know what Trae's giving you, you know what Clint, and you know what Hurt and those guys, and you know what Collins and those guys are going to do is be yourself. Don't try to go out there and do too much. You've seen almost everything other teams have tried to play you, and you've come out on top. Like you said, Kevin, by coming in with that one game cushion, you can play loose, but you can still, have a backs against the wall type mentality, because going back to Atlanta up 2-0 feels much different than going back 1-1. I think when you look at what Nate McMillan is doing with his Hawks team, he's getting his guys to not, can you handle the onslaught? Can you handle being down? Check. Can you handle can you handle coming back from a game when you're down by double digits? Check. I think everything that a team can be given throughout the course of a series, I think the Hawks have passed all those tests. Now, this is the current one. Giannis is Giannis. Middleton is probably going to, come out there and shoot lights out. You're going to have to find a way to neutralize Drew Holiday with the way he goes out and distributes the ball. But if you Atlanta, we've seen it all. We ain't done it all, but we've seen it all at this point. I don't think Giannis is a harder matchup than Embiid is. I just think that Giannis is, just a little bit more, he's a little longer, a little more athletic, but not a better player. So if you Atlanta, go out there and do what you've been doing. But Kevin, if they do win tonight, going back to Atlanta 2-0, what type of confidence does that give Trae Young and those guys, and how desperate of a hole does that put the Bucks in?
Well, I mean, historically speaking, it's huge because now the Hawks need to win 2 games. And you've got to win 4. So you've got to go on a hot streak 4 out of 6. And that's, especially now you're talking Eastern Conference Finals, that's difficult to do. To say, hey, we're just going to win 3 or 4 games in a row against another team in this setting. That's hard just to flip that switch, especially when you get down 2-0. BJ, now the other team smells blood in the water. It's like, hey, we're 2 wins away from doing this thing and going back home. So Hawks are playing with a little bit of house money in this series right now. I don't think that means they take game 2 lightly. I mean, you get game 2 tonight, BJ, and it is a huge uphill battle for Milwaukee to come back and win the series. Doesn't mean they can't do it. But if you're the Hawks, you feel like if we continue to playing the way we're playing, they will not win 4 out of 6 against us. Or 4 out of, what would it be, 4 out of 5, right? Yeah, they will not win 4 out of 5 games against us the way we are playing. And I think that's just the huge advantage of being up 2-0 on a team is that you feel like, look, all we need is 2 wins. They've got to go 4 out of 5 and get it done. And I believe most teams in the conference finals feel like they're good enough to keep that from happening.
I'm interested to see what happens with the rebounding margin tonight, because to me, Atlanta was very successful there in game 1. And I think that's kind of an underappreciated aspect of why they won, because we've mentioned this a couple of times. This postseason, Milwaukee has been the best rebounding team statistically, and certainly they have the size. When you think about Lopez and Giannis and then PJ Tucker, a really good rebounder, I think it's going to be really key for Atlanta to maintain that advantage, even if it's just a modest advantage, or even if you're around even. I think as long as you're not out rebounded tonight by a significant advantage or margin, I think you're going to be in this game, because I don't know that Milwaukee is a great shooting team. I think they're a good shooting team. But as you mentioned, Ben, Chris Middleton was off a little bit in game 1. I think he'll be better. Giannis, not really a long-range threat per se. So you got to get the rebounds. You got to keep these guys off the glass. You got to limit second chance opportunities. And in game 1, you out-rebounded the Bucks 51-45. And I was very surprised at that. I believe, Capella and Collins combined for 34 rebounds. So keep an eye on those guys early. Is Atlanta able to limit second chance opportunities, grab the defensive boards early? I think that's going to be an important factor here tonight.
The Hawks got to keep the Bucks off schedule. The Bucks seem to play better when they have a lead, when they can go out there and beat themselves, not really have to worry about shot selection, not really have to worry about, making mistakes. When you talk about this Hawks team, they got to keep pressure on Giannis. Just frustrate him. He's gonna get his shots. He's gonna get to his spot, but you got to frustrate him. Middleton did not have a good game 1. You want to try to, find ways to continue to frustrate him the same way you did in game 1, in game 2. And if you Trae Young, are people expecting you to have 48 in game 2? No. But are people expecting you to be efficient? Yes. Are people expecting the ball to be in your hand at crunch time? Yes. Are people expecting you to get to the free throw line? Yes. Listen, the law offices of Collins, and Capella, I need both of y'all to go out there and keep doing what they're doing with the rebound. Getting those huge offensive rebound that it goes unnoticed what Clint Capella got, in game 1 to get the putback. I just think that when you are talking about a team like the Hawks, for which people are talking about them nationally, like this ain't the Eastern Conference Finals. Excuse me. They're saying, how did they get here? Oh, hard-nosed defense when they need to, making stops when they need to. Never going away. And here we are. I just think for Atlanta to have a shot to win tonight, you want to put Giannis on the line late, because I think the later the game gets, the more nervous he gets. And you got to make sure that the Trae can't get doubled in crunch time to get to his shot. And I think that gives them good a shot as any.
Well, let me ask you all this real quick, because, Ben, you made a point. It's probably unrealistic to look at Trae and say, hey, 48 tonight. What do you think he needs to get to for you to feel good about winning? Does he need to get to 30? Can he win with, 23, 24? Does he have to get close to 40? What do you think you need out of Trae tonight?
You're gonna need 30 and double-digit assists. Bigger than the points, you need a double-digit assist. I think he's averaging, close to 10 assists a game in this entire series. So you need him to get close to 30, and you need him to get BJ late free throw opportunities. Because that means that he's getting to the line, and hopefully they're in a position. But 48, if he repeat game 1, we'll take it. I'll definitely take it. But 48 points, double-digit 48 points, 11 assists and 7 rebounds. That's 3 people in 1. I don't think you need that heroic of an effort, but BJ, yes, 30, 10, and 5. I think that's going to have to be the bare minimum for the Hawks to stay into the game.
Yeah, you need Trae to lead the way, and I think, again, is it John Collins? Is it Kevin Huerter? Is it Clint Capella? You need a number 2 to really step up and have a big effort in game 2 as well. You saw John Collins, 25 and 15 I think he's somebody else to step up and put up similar numbers. It'd be nice to see Kevin Huerter drop maybe 24, 25 points tonight if he could do that, shooting from the outside. I think it's going to be kind of interesting. Both teams were just horrendously cold from beyond the arc in game number one. I'm interested to see if that swings things one direction for another if somebody comes out just on fire from behind the arc. I think both teams shot under 25% from three-point range in game number one. So if that goes up a shade, that might swing it one way or another in this one this evening. We've certainly got more to get to with the Atlanta Hawks. Game number two going to be huge tonight there in Milwaukee. Hawks going to try to come back home Sunday night up 2-0 with a chance to really put a damper in things on Sunday night if they can get it done this evening. As I mentioned, a lot to get to, including this hour. We'll chat with Lawton Swan, Clemson Sports Talk. And when we come back, in honor of the Hawks, we'll do a little Name That Team next. It's 3 and Out on this Friday afternoon all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Love to hear from you on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. It is a Friday afternoon here at 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, thanks for making us a part of your day. Lawton Swan, Clemson Sports Talk will join us coming up in just a little bit. We'll talk about the proposed 12-team playoff, name, image, likeness, and more as it comes up. And look ahead to Clemson and Georgia, which are going to start off the college football season right there the first part of September. That being said, BJ, Hawks are in game number 2. We got a special Hawks edition. Name that team here on 3 and Out.
It's time to play Name That Team.
All right, yes, the team is the Atlanta Hawks, and that is not the totality of the game here. What we're going to do,
Name that
right,
team you've
is
ever done.
yes, we're going to name a player in Hawks history. You guys are going to tell me where that player played college basketball, where they went to college. Now, all of these players were drafted, and all of them were pretty prominent players for the Atlanta Hawks. I will keep score for folks who are new to this. Of course, you get a guess, and it better be right. That's how you get points. So name that team. These are all Atlanta Hawks stars, former stars for the organization. You have to tell me where they went to college. We will start it out. I'm going to keep score. I'm going to handle it. So we will start it out here with Joe Johnson.
Ben.
Okay, quickly, you don't have to say your name here. You can just guess.
Mississippi State.
No,
you don't lose. You just get nothing. I'm gonna guess, but I'm just afraid I'm wrong. Did he play at Purdue?
That is wrong. Ben was on the right track. Is Arkansas?
Doggone it!
Oh man!
Out of the SEC, Arkansas for Joe Johnson.
That was bad.
Sorry. All right. Pete Maravich.
LSU.
That is correct. A couple of SEC answers right off the bat. Yep, Kevin gets that one. Pete Maravich went to LSU. Paul Millsap.
You know what? BJ trying to do something funny here. He went to. Wait a minute. He went to Louisiana Tech.
Yes, well done.
Because I knew it was Louisiana Southern. I'm like, it was a Tech, right?
Very good. Correct. Yes, Paul Millsap, Louisiana Tech. It is Kevin 1, Ben 1. Name that team where these Atlanta Hawks went to college. All right, Spud Webb.
Oh my God, he went to college.
I was gonna say he was with the Hawks from the time I think I was born.
Yeah, he went to Weber State.
No.
To go to a P5 school? Can I know? Missouri. I don't know.
That's your second? No, you have Purdue with the first one. I was trying to think. No, Spud Webb, NC State. State for Spud Webb in the ACC. All right. Doc Rivers.
Whoa.
I mean, these are guys that were playing for the Hawks when I was like 8 years old. So it's like, I don't know where they went.
Marquette.
Yes. Ben, well done. Yes, that is correct.
He really went to Marquette.
Yeah, I was kind of stunned because you acted like you didn't know. I was just waiting. Hold on. Was that a guess? Was that a guess?
Pull one out of my rear end guess. Like there's only 300 some odd D1 schools.
I was like, when D-Wade went to Marquette, I throw it out there.
What exactly does D-Wade have to do with Doc Rivers?
No, I'm just thinking D-Wade. My train of thought is my train of thought is just all over the place. I'm sorry.
That was impressive. Ben leading 2-1. All right, Lenny Wilkens.
Oh my goodness.
Lenny Wilkens, did he go to Carolina?
No.
Clemson?
No. He went to Providence. Lenny Wilkens went to Providence College. All right, Steve Smith.
Michigan State.
Yes, and Cody, I believe we have a tie game, which is pretty interesting and pretty inspiring moving forward here. Name that team. Yes, Steve Smith went to Michigan State. Lou Hudson.
Lou Hudson. Lou Hudson and Sell Insurance?
Was Lou Hudson out of the league when Ben and I were both like 2 years old?
Oh, man. Texas.
No.
Michigan.
Pretty close. Minnesota.
Minnesota.
So not a bad guess, but it's 2-2. We move forward. Okay. Mookie Blaylock.
Oh, my goodness. Mookie.
He was Michigan.
No.
Michigan State.
I appreciate what you're doing there, but the correct answer, Oklahoma. And Ben, I thought you had it right off the bat because you said, oh, and then you went, no, it's
Well,
Oklahoma.
you hit me with the long pause. You made me think I was right on another.
You were not right there. Mookie Blaylock, Oklahoma. Jeff Teague.
Wake. I remember Jeff.
Kevin, I thought you were going to have that one, man.
Oh, boy.
ACC basketball fan.
I remember Jeff. I'm like, I know certain guys.
Ben was all over the buzzer on that one. He got me on the buzz in.
Hawks greats, where they went to college. Name that team. Ben leading 3-2. Tree Rollins.
Tree Rollins? Oh, my goodness, man.
NC State.
Nope.
St. John's.
I mean, technically, would he have gone to Stanford?
Correct answer, Clemson. Correct answer, Clemson.
I mean,
All right.
Stanford would have made sense.
I got you. Kyle Korver.
Creighton. I know. I remember.
Okay.
I remember them good players. That 5 years ago.
All right, so Ben is leading Kevin 4-2. Name that team. DeMare Carroll.
I mean, shoot.
I can see it, but I can't. I can't place it.
I mean, NC State.
Nope.
Villanova.
Correct answer. You guessed this earlier. Is Missouri for DeMare Carroll. Jason Terry.
Jason Terry's Arizona.
Ooh, that is correct, and I believe that brings us to Ben 4, Kevin 3, and we have a couple left. Let's first off, we should appreciate that we have a competitive name that team. That's I mean, that's pretty amazing. This guy was the number 1 overall pick in the draft years ago, but Walt Bellamy.
Wasn't he in that movie with Jamie Foxx?
That's Bill Bellamy. I think. That's a comedian.
Any given Sunday.
Walt Bellamy, number 1 overall pick. What draft, man?
Okay, will it help y'all if I look it up and tell you what draft? No, then why are you asking?
Probably not.
Virginia.
This is like when they ask for the part of speech in the spelling contest.
Yeah,
it really doesn't matter.
Country of origin, please.
Yeah. Language of origin. Where is Walt Bellamy? What year? It doesn't matter. It still won't help me out any. Kansas.
Close. If you were thinking about a traditional power, correct answer, Indiana, and that means that was the totality of the list there. Ben wins 4-3. Good effort from both of you guys. I did have a potential tiebreaker that I wanted to ask you guys. We'll throw out there just for fun.
Yeah,
Hawks,
10 points.
Hawks interim head coach Nate McMillan. Where did he play?
North Carolina.
No.
Washington.
And I feel bad because Ben was pretty close, and I didn't want to say, oh, you were really close, but wrong. North Carolina State for Nate McMillan. NC State. The Wolfpack.
Well, you can't win them all, and I don't. So that's another edition.
No, both of you guys did a good job, though. That was well done. Good job.
That's another edition of Name That Team. Well, Hawks edition. I thought I was expecting like a John Koncak drop in there at some point, but alas, we did not get it. I was disappointed. I should have known some of the other ones that I didn't get, but There you go. We've got more to come. It's 3 and Out. We come back. Lawton Swan will join us. We're talking some Clemson, talking their showdown with Georgia coming up in just a couple of short months till that kickoff. He'll join us next here on 3 and Out. It is 3 out on this Friday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, thanks for being with us all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Also streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube live streaming there as well on this Friday afternoon. So glad to have you. College football changing by the minute with 12-team playoff out there on the proposal. Obviously, name, image, likeness getting ready to start next week in a lot of states. And, of course, we do know college football coming up July 4th, actually. I believe it'll be 2 months to the day to get to that opening weekend, huge weekend of college football, which will give us Georgia and Clemson as well. And joining us here to talk about all that and more from Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan steps in here on 3 and Out. Lawton, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm always doing good, man. Hope you are as well.
Yeah, we're doing fantastic, man. And obviously we're getting close to the 2-month countdown for Georgia and Clemson to start things off. I know, Clemson, obviously we know what they lost. What are they bringing back as we get ready for this game? And also one of Clemson's best defenders transfers to Georgia through the transfer portal here in the offseason as well. So a little more intrigue there in the opening week.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if the Jerry Kendrick deal would be seen as a transfer portal deal. He was kind of kicked off of the team for some issues that they had and then ultimately ends up at Georgia. But, I think the big question still remains about Justin Ross and his health and how he can come back to this ball club. You look back a year ago when Clemson's going head-to-head with Ohio State in the college football semifinal. Clemson just didn't have the offensive weaponry, and the defense certainly didn't show up enough in the secondary to really help them out. But, Justin Ross would have been probably a top 5 receiver across the country last season. And with a degenerative issue in his neck, that's always something that's a little bit scary. And he had some surgery to get it all cleaned up. And we're still kind of in a wait and see approach with him. But, I think he's the big key for Clemson this year, because as much as you like the frame of a Joe Ngata, as much as you like what you've seen, maybe even from E.J. Williams, who ironically is from the same high school as Justin Ross over in Phoenix City, Alabama, I still think that having Justin Ross in that offense for Clemson with DJ Uiagalelei at quarterback is still going to be a significant story to keep your eyeballs on.
And Lawton, just overall, what are your expectations for Clemson's offense? I know there's a bit of an unknown there with Ross, but, losing the guys you lost, still an incredible amount of talent there. What type of offense do you think we're going to see?
Well, I think a year ago, if you said to me, hey, give me the top 5 players on Clemson's roster, it was a real quick 1-2, right? You go Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, and probably not many people would waver from that. But this year, I don't know where the top player on the offensive side of the ball starts if Justin Ross isn't there at wideout. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if DJ would even be considered the top 5 player on this team coming into the season. So that's kind of where I keep my eye on how does DJ perform. The good news is I went back the other day and looked when you transition from Deshaun Watson to Kelly Bryant. Kelly Bryant had only thrown at that point like 18 passes and completed 13 of them. And then that year, he wasn't stellar, 2,800 yards passing. He had 13 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, but still managed to lead Clemson to be the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. Now, it didn't go well in the Sugar Bowl against Alabama, losing 24-6 that year. But you feel like you know a lot more about DJ simply because of what he did in terms of his road performance against Notre Dame, throwing for the most yards against the Fighting Irish in their history, over 400 yards passing. Something that ironically, Trevor Lawrence never had a 400-yard passing game in his career. So I think you feel good at quarterback. Then when you shift to that second spot that I just mentioned a few minutes ago, Travis Etienne not being there, do you have a ton of trust in Lynn J. Dixon at that point? At this point, I don't know that I do. I know they like Kobe Pace because of the side. Keep your eyes on Phil Maffa and Will Shipley. I go with an old school television show reference. I call them the Fresh Prince. Prints, Will and Phil. Those 2 guys have a chance to maybe be explosive for Clemson, and Shipley's a former 5-star kid out of North Carolina.
And Lawton, I mean, I know you mentioned that you don't know who's going to be the best guy on offense, not named Justin Ross, and DJU probably wouldn't even be top 5. But last time I checked, Coach Venables is still coming back at defensive coordinator, and you guys are loaded, or Clemson is loaded at the defensive positions.
Monsters, and I would put the best player on the team right now possibly being Miles Murphy at defensive end as a true sophomore. And I think most people would like to think that it might be Brian Brzee. I know Brzee was an all-ACC performer as a freshman or a freshman all ACC performer. And people really, I think, kind of hyped him up based off his recruiting status. But Miles Murphy, Ben, reminds me of Cleveland Farrell. And I think he can be that good for Clemson off of the edge, just a menacing guy. And, Tyler Davis in the interior was never 100% healthy this past season. I think, just having some time off for him will hopefully help him out. And then you mentioned it, Brent Venables. I know that he's been sliced up a couple of times now in the college football playoff. Believe me, that doesn't sit well with a guy that's a cerebral assassin when it comes down to breaking down film. I think they'll get things right. The biggest question marks probably still come in the back end. Who is the go-to cornerback off of Andrew Booth? I mean, I think if you had Derion Kendrick, it's probably Kendrick and Booth 1-2 as the defensive back starting at corner for Clemson. It's really just kind of a group effort there. But I think Mike Reed, the defensive backs coach, really likes the fact that he's got a lot of depth there because of how explosive teams are and teams going 4 and 5 wide. You really get a bunch of guys. You can put some speed out there if necessary. But you're all over it, man. Brent Venables is just an incredible mind when it comes to the game on the defensive side of the ball. And another name I'll throw out there I really like is Trenton Simpson. I think Simpson has a chance as a sophomore to be very similar to what we saw. And this is going to be big praise to what we saw from Isaiah Simmons. And I would argue maybe even Dorian O'Daniel, just a real nice combo of those two guys, at that nickel hybrid spot.
Lawton Swan, Clemson Sports Talk, joining us here on 3 and Out. And Lawton, I know obviously we got the whole season to pontificate about, but if you're a Clemson fan right now, do a lot of the Tiger faithful feel like if you get by Georgia with a dub, that's it? That's the undefeated mark lying up? Do you feel there's another team out there that can really challenge Clemson to put them back on their heels and possibly give them a loss?
It's ironic because I think that if you look at Clemson's schedule opening with Georgia, the odds probably are if they were to lose that game that they run the table, right? Like they refocus, they understand what's at stake. They never have that game that they maybe overlook a team or come in not exactly playing their sharpest. You flip it and you go, hey, if they beat Georgia, well, I worry, and I think Clemson fans and people that cover them certainly would worry, that they might get that big head, maybe overlook somebody and have a loss later. So it's ironic. I think if they beat Georgia, you should have more concern that they have a stumbling block along the way than if they were to lose to Georgia. But I think most people, and you've seen it in some of the predictions, with the over-under on wins for Clemson, having them at 11.5. I mean, that essentially comes down to this opener. Do you think they're going to beat Georgia or not? And that might be more indicative on a concern about Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs, maybe more so than Clemson. We've seen Smart maybe outcoach himself a little bit at times during his career in Athens. And I think that might be some of the sentiment that you see with the belief that Clemson is possibly going to win this game. I think it may come down to a Kirby Smart issue more so than, hey, Clemson's here or Georgia's there.
A lot going on in college football, obviously, including, it appears, a 12-team playoff on the horizon. Do you think that's good for the sport?
I do. I like it. And I know that's hard for probably some Clemson people to stomach because I think what Clemson and Alabama and Oklahoma and Ohio State are just 4 of the main teams that have kind of been there a lot and benefited from is the additional exposure you get from the middle of December, that first bowl game through the college football playoff. All they talk about are those 4 teams. And I just think that that's a decided advantage. And I don't think that it's surprising to a lot of people that we're kind of in this era where Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, and Oklahoma have separated themselves so much from the rest of their contemporaries. Maybe not as much for the Crimson Tide, but far be it for me to say that they won't be back in the playoffs this year. I think most people, if you said, hey, I'm going to give you $1 million if you give me the 4 teams that are in, most people are going to put Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State and probably Oklahoma in the mix. And that's just a byproduct of this system of 4. I think if you go to 12 or 10, however they want to do it, I just think it's better. It's more inclusive. And for those years where you have, that off season, perhaps you can still slide your way into the playoff, which I think most fans would really like.
And along with everything going on in college athletics right now, specifically college football, you talk about, the 12-team playoff coming soon. You talk about name and image likeness. You talk about the Supreme Court rulings. Are we seeing a change in college, not just college football, but college athletics as we know, especially with college football kind of being the bell cow at most of these universities and colleges?
I think we are, and I don't necessarily love it because I feel like the part of the conversation that gets left out, and Ben, you can speak to this more than any of us in this room, is the fact that, there is still a huge benefit to getting a free education in this country. And if the student athletes take advantage of it, I just think that it's a false narrative to say that athletes don't get anything, during their time playing sports collegiately. I thought it was a false narrative before they got the stipend and the cost of attendance scholarships. I get it. There are players out there like Trevor Lawrence that probably could not have to take a snap, maybe even professionally, and could make enough money selling his name on some billboard locally for a few $100,000 every year, maybe come out of college with $2 million in the bank and not do anything if he wanted to. But I think those cases are few and far between. And what we got to figure out is how do we, make it equitable for everybody involved, because I don't see college all that differently from high school. I'll be honest with you. I think you choose to play, you choose to sign the scholarship, you know the system and how it's set up. And even if there are a lot of people out there to go, hey, this system's wrong, it's just kind of been the way it's built. And the professional, I go to a professional game, and Ben, I'm looking at the long snapper going, how's that guy making $350,000 a year? And I'm busting my hump every day trying to scratch by. So for me, I don't ever want to have that feeling about collegiate athletics. And I think if we're not careful, if we don't figure out how to do it the right way, people are going to get there. And I don't think that's good for the sport, because I think there's a passion that resides in the hearts of Clemson fans, Georgia fans, South Carolina fans for those universities. And they don't want to see it as a professional team. They like the fact that it's still very much amateur. And I know it's a tough thing for a lot of people to hear, but I want to keep as much amateurism in it as we can.
Yeah, and again, that's the debate I think that is going back and forth. We've talked about that a lot on this show, is what is amateurism. And we look at it a lot with name, image, likeness set to take place in our state in Georgia starting next week as something that's possible. I mean, we talk all the time, like people think about money raining from the sky, but I mean, Trevor Lawrence might be the one example of a guy that could severely cash in on something like that in college. I mean, how do you see it as a well-renowned program as Clemson? How many guys, you said right now, would you be talking about just cashing in significantly from a name, image, and likeness deal at this point?
I don't know that it's more than 4 or 5, but then I think we also cross over into the realm of how much more valuable is it to go play at Southern Cal, where you've got, millions and millions and millions of eyeballs on a billboard in Los Angeles. So I think that that's the other thing that people need to consider when we talk about this is the major markets. Miami, all of a sudden, Georgia Tech's a more ideal place to go. You bounce around the country, and next thing you know, Rutgers will be a power because you got eyeballs in New York City. And so that, to me, is another part of this issue that I think we've got to figure out, because you guys know this, working in Savannah and selling advertising and doing this, that, and the other, what the value is in a larger market versus if you were doing your show in South Carolina, it'd be a little bit different. So I just think the other side of this coin that we got to be careful with if we're going to really try to figure out how to make it all work.
It's here, Clemson Sports Talk. Obviously, that's a complex issue, but the bottom line is 2 months from now, we will have college football back and with us, and looking forward to it. Lawton, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Hey, guys, hope to see you in Charlotte.
Yes, sir. Lawton Swann, our guest here on 3 Now. Always enjoy catching up with him, and BJ's mentioning points about name, image, and likeness stuff and money flowing through college football that, again, I think what are the adverse effects that you don't think about when it's all said and done? And he brought up something I don't think we've discussed on the show is, does Southern Cal, UCLA, a Texas, a team in Dallas, Georgia Tech, Miami, Boston College, schools that are inside major kind of media markets, when you're talking about exposure, benefit more from being at a school like that as far as getting name, image, likeness stuff, as opposed to, again, no offense, Clemson or Auburn, who are not exactly next to a lot of metropolitan areas.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, there are so many unknowns or so many things that we just don't have clear answers to yet because this is kind of uncharted territory. But yeah, clearly a lot that we still have to figure out, learn about, and get more clarity with as we move forward with college football, college athletics.
Yeah. Quickly, Ben, you got anything?
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, I do think it could be bad, but at the same time, I mean, we always gonna look at the pros and the cons of anything that we do, Kevin and BJ. But if you're in a major city, I mean, you just got to utilize what you got. That's the only way you're gonna be able to get some of these kids to these schools.
It's going to be interesting to see how it evolves once it comes into effect in college football. And again, in the state of Georgia, that goes into effect next week, a week from Thursday. We've got more to come here on 3 and Out on this Friday afternoon. We'll hear from Matt Smith coming up next hour as well. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Hit us up on Twitter. Love to hear from you at Pigskin Radio. Great to be here with you on this Friday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. We'll hear from Matt Smith coming up in the final hour, or not the final hour, excuse me. We'll hear from him next hour here on the show, and we'll talk about college football as we go into the 2021 season, kind of the new age that we're entering into, BJ, as we kind of talked about with Lawton there, with name, image, likeness, 12-team playoff, and just the rapidly changing kind of day-to-day of college that we've seen be shaped here over the last couple of months.
A lot of change at once. And I think for a lot of people, and we were chatting with Ross Dellinger about this, we were chatting with Dan Murphy about this. I think for a lot of people, there are so many moving parts and kind of so many factors that it's hard to keep track of everything that's going on, right? It's like, okay, I'm just now figuring out, the college football playoff, and now, okay, it's going to 12 teams, or wait, college players can make money off it. Yeah, name, image, likeness, and it's happening in some states. It's not in other states. There might be a federal mandate. There might be an NCAA mandate, and then it's okay, the Supreme Court just ruled on something else. So I think for a lot of people, the college football headlines have been just hard to follow, trying to keep track of all of it. And yes, over the next couple of years, you're going to see some changes implemented, absolutely. But I think for a lot of people right now, you're just trying to kind of process it all and make sure you understand all that's happening.
It's going to be a big adjustment, and I think you got to be able to look at it from both ways. I mean, something we always talk about, Kevin and BJ, we're in the know. We know every single thing that happened because, well, it's our job to know, but we can't be thinking it's not going to be everybody. It's going to be good with it. It's going to be bad with it. You're going to lose some fans. You're going to gain some fans, but I think the overall product on the field going to supersede everything that's happening. But I do hope, once again, that every single athlete gets a chance to benefit from all these changes that seems to be on the horizon.
Yeah, and again, we'll talk some about that with Matt Smith coming up in just a little bit. We'll get to Take 3 coming up in just a little bit. In hour 2, we'll also look at Russell Wilson, the 10-year anniversary of Russell Wilson post-grad transferring to Wisconsin. Who are some of the best post-grad transfers we've seen over time, and just how just in 10 years, how the kind of transfer game has changed in college football from that standpoint when Russell Wilson did it 10 years ago. So that is something we'll look back on as well there in hour number 2. In the final hour, we'll look at Gus Malzahn talking college football playoff now that he's at Central Florida. Does he have a point, or is he just living the dream, so to speak, there at Central Florida? We'll talk about that in the final hour as well. It is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Love to hear from you on Twitter at Pigskin Radio, at Pigskin Radio. We are streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com on your mobile device with the ESPN app. Welcome back, hour two, 3 and out on this Friday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. We'll chat with Matt Smith coming up in about 30 minutes here on the program. We'll also look at 10-year anniversary of Russell Wilson going to Wisconsin from NC State, and who are some of the top post-grad transfers that we've seen in college football. There have been a lot just recently, since 2011, even the last 10 years, that have had significant impact. We'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. But first, let's take three here on 3 and Out. All right, fellas, take one. On this date in 2014, Argentina's Luis Suarez was sent off at the World Cup for biting Italy's Giorgio Chiellini. I hope I'm saying this all correct. What is the dirtiest thing you've ever seen in sports?
Yeah, and I was looking up some lists and looking at clips, and I mean there are a couple of different ways you could go here in terms of some plays that were just rough. But I'm not a hockey expert. I don't know if Cody maybe knows about this. He's a little more up to date and knowledgeable with hockey. But apparently there was a play, Marty McSorley, where he hit Donald Brashear basically in the head, and very much in the head neck area with his stick, and it was a really scary, serious situation. And I believe McSorley was actually convicted of assault with a weapon and was suspended for a year. From the NHL, and that was a generation or so ago. But you're talking about a play where it was not a sports. It wasn't like sometimes in hockey you have hits that are collisions that are really significant and startling. This was like coming from behind with a stick and catching you in the face, head, neck area, and that was rough to see. Cody saying he also lost his pay for that year. Yes, so that one's right up there for me.
Wow. I mean, I was actually in the game against the Dallas Cowboys when Albert Haynesworth was stomped on the center for the Dallas Cowboys' head. That's definitely up there for me, even though I didn't see it in real time. I had to look up at the Jumbotron to kind of see like what happened. That's always something that's going to resonate in my mind. But, that was the heat of the moment. But for me, what stands out, I think it was 2009, LeGarrette Blount and Byron Hoot. LeGarrette Blount, star running back for the Oregon Ducks. After the game, they lost the game, and I think Oregon was heavy favorite. LeGarrette Blount got tapped on the shoulder by Byron Hoot, and that was the punch heard around. I mean, he rocked him. And mind you, what made it cowardly was this. There ain't a player after a game that's mad because you lost. There ain't a player after the game that wants to win when you're a heavy favorite. People are going to say, oh, it's because he tapped him. No, it's because he was mad. He goes, well, I might have lost the war, but I'm finna win this battle, and it's bad. LeGarrette Blount ended up not even playing that whole year. I think they let him come back like at the end of the year for a meaningless game, but I mean, if you've never seen it, I mean, when LeGarrette Blount hit Byron Hoot and he just dropped. I mean, that dude, because obviously, we football players, man, so aggressiveness is just something, but it was a cowardly move. I mean, you don't hit nobody just because, spoiled sports happen, sour grapes happen. But, I mean, the fact that he hit him and he kind of he ended up having a pretty decent NFL career, but it definitely cost him the rest of his collegiate career. So, for me, LeGarrette Blount, Byron Hoot, the punch heard around the world.
I mean, there's a bunch of dirty stuff out there. I think Mike Tyson biting Evander Holyfield's ear off, basically so he could get the fight stopped because he was getting worked over by Evander. I think that's right up there, and I'm ashamed to know this because you brought this up, but didn't in our question didn't Zinedine Zidane, why I know that, didn't he like headbutt a dude like in the middle of I don't know if it was a World Cup or not. I just remember it being on SportsCenter for a while. He got suspended for like just running up and was like, ah, like just right in the chest and done. I'm not going to do that. Cody wants me to do that again. Not doing it again, but yeah, you see dirty stuff. I mean, Chris Paul back in the day, didn't he hit below the belt on what was it, Julius Hodge? You're trying to scrap for position in the paint. Chris Paul said, "Wait a minute, don't." and Julius Hodge, needless to say, hit the floor for a minute or so. Moving along, take two. Hey, we are 6 months away from Christmas. So it's Christmas in June. But what is one present you want to see under your sports tree this year?
exciting Jacksonville Jaguars offense. Now,
that's all you want. It's like the easiest present. Okay,
listen, man.
Exciting offense.
Listen, I don't know that it's unrealistic or I don't know that it's realistic even for Santa Claus to say, look, I want to sit here and have a winning record, or I want to guarantee that we're going to be in the playoffs. I don't know that I don't know. I want exciting Jacksonville Jaguars offense, okay? And I think that's a reasonable request because you're talking about Trevor Lawrence and the reports, in our show notes. Trevor Lawrence has had a really, really good camp. It's been really impressive. Travis Etienne, we know what Travis Etienne can do. I think he's going to be more dynamic in the passing game than a lot of people. I'm still stunned that so many, when he was taken in the first round, went, wait, you're going to have a backup running back be drafted in the first round? No, he's going to be one of the featured playmakers on the entire team, and he's going to touch the ball a variety of different ways. And then, Ben, we were talking about it the other day, Laviska Shenault, a lot of people picking him to be a breakout star in the league to go along with DJ Shark and go along with Marvin Jones coming in. And who knows, maybe Tim Tebow is a part of the exciting offense. But what I'm saying is I want exciting Jacksonville Jaguars offense. Trevor, get the ball to Travis, get the ball to Laviska, get the ball out wide. Let's score some points.
You already know what I want. I want Emory Jones. I want Emory Jones to be a Heisman Trophy finalist, and I want Florida to win the East. Like with all this talk, this is the year Georgia got everything they needed because they lost George Pickens, and this got to be the year. This got to be, college football playoff a bust for the Georgia Bulldogs under my Christmas tree. Santa, I want you to give me Florida winning the East. Florida's back in Atlanta to probably get beat again by Alabama, but it don't matter. Florida back in Atlanta, with Georgia eat your heart out, and BJ. And finally, you talking about good offense. I want to see Florida run the football consistently because I haven't seen it in a while. Matter of fact, I haven't seen it at all. So give me Florida running the football, Emory Jones a Heisman Trophy finalist, and then Florida Gators winning the East playing Alabama, for the SEC championship.
Well, I mean, I got to say I'm stunned at your answers. I mean, basically we just said, ask Santa for anything you want. And BJ said, I'll take underwear and socks. I mean, that's the equivalent of what you said.
No, I'm trying to be realistic. We're 6 months out. I'm trying to be fair. I don't want to come with a super arrogant request for Santa 6 months out. The closer we get, we're 2-3 months out, I will be a little more arrogant. But we're a half year out. I don't want to start saying I got to have a Jaguars to the Super Bowl run, so I'm starting small.
If you can have it, why not ask for it? I'm just saying, you don't sit on Santa's lap and say, I really don't have enough sweaters. That's what I'm saying. I mean, Ben just said, if I could have anything under my sports tree, it would be to make it to Atlanta, even though we'll probably lose. Like, what are y'all asking for?
Listen, Santa.
I mean, come on.
Hey, Santa, man, I didn't write that first list. Listen, I want the Florida Gators to be coming out of the East, playing Alabama, beating Alabama, and and maybe a Florida Gator Blue F-650 just to drive to the game. What? I got to go to the game in style. Santa won't be driving up. Santa won't be driving up in that nice little 650. You know what I'm saying? What's up?
All right, moving along. Take 3. Don't ask for socks and underwear next time. Take 3. Today is National Bring Your Kids to Work Day. What is you got one favorite story from having your kids or even somebody else's kid at the office for, take your kid to work?
Yeah. Mine are with your kids because for folks who have listened to the station for years, that, hey, sometimes something might happen and you have some dead air or whatever. And when that happens, normally, and Kevin, this is more for you and PJ, y'all understand everything. You have kind of the checklist, right? So you go off the air or something happens or, you lose power or the computer goes out. You run through all the checklists. And for you guys, sometimes it's very detailed, right? It's not just, and Cody knows, sometimes it's not just up, the mic's off. It's, the wrong carts in the log or something with the satellite receiver got messed up or something got unplugged or somebody who shouldn't be touching something like me touched something and I don't even know what I did. Well, what was amazing is I think you and I were doing a live coaches show talking about games from the night before, recapping high school football, and all of a sudden we lose it and we're looking around going, what happened? What's wrong with the computer? The system's out, this and that. And one of your kids had gone in and gone over to the rack of satellite receivers and was just pressing buttons on, off, got it, delete. And that, even when you have young kids, that doesn't necessarily immediately pop into your mind when you think, what's wrong with my radio station? That's not one of the first or second thoughts. And it was just so crazy watching me watch you realize that your son had shut 3 or 4 radio stations off. I couldn't remember going, that's incredible. And in some ways, it was kind of awesome. Like you were melting down because you were responsible for the station being off and your kids back there unplugging, whatever and plugging it back in. I was just amazed. I was like, one, that's very technologically innovative and creative. That of all the buttons to press, your son goes, I'm going to figure out which one shuts the whole thing down. I'm not just going to make the volume go down. I'm not just going to mess up a commercial for later. I'm shutting the whole thing down. Very impressive. And you handled it. You handled it. You handled it.
Man, I mean, it's too. I mean, the favorite ones. Oh man, I got 3 quick, and they quick. I mean, my 3 favorite. My first is, I had my kids, and when I say my kids, I mean my niece and nephews as well as my my daughters and my son. They was in here in the main studio one day, and I was like, I said, y'all think y'all can do a show? They was like, yeah, we can do a show. So we put them on the headphones, and we turned them up. And my nephew goes, so what y'all want to talk about? No. You should know what you should know what you want to talk about. This, that, and the third. And they kind of went back and forth or whatever. And we leave, and they go. And my daughter says, "So, Daddy, do we get paid for this?" I'm like, "What? Like, no, you didn't do the real show." Then, I got Kevin's 2 in here, right? They, the oldest one in there playing the game in the office, and the little one just comes and just turns the game off. And I'm like, what? And Kevin goes, this is what they do. Like, no. This is what they do all day long, right? I said, what? And they just go on that. They just go, Kevin go. It ain't even worth telling them to stop because they're going to start up again. Then this is the funniest one. Kevin's youngest, little man, just celebrated, I think, his 10th birthday. It's hard to impress this young man. So we in the other office one time, and I said, did you watch the draft? He goes, yeah. So I turned on the Kyle Pitts thing. They let me do the voiceover. So he's listening. And when he hears my voice, he goes, wait a minute. He says, is that you? I said, that's me. He goes, that's you? He said, do it again. He says, quote, talk right now. What? Talk right now. He says, you. And to me, that's the barometer, right? Because our kids, they hear us all the time, right? But when we come back, and Kevin's little one goes, BJ Bennett, that stuff is just like, that's what it is. Because no matter what, it's like if our kids go, man, yeah, I mean, my daughter told me, quote, DJ, when she was there, she goes, you all right? She said, you ain't on TV or nothing. I said, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm on the stream. So, it's always the kids, man. Yours, BJ, I got 2 minutes with yours. I mean, at the station. But yeah, Kevin's 2, mine. I mean, it's always a joy coming to be here because Kevin's favorite word is out. Like, I'm not going to have a conversation about it. Out, and they just turn around. That stuff is always the best.
Sometimes you have to do it, man. They want to be in the studio. And it's like, no, just out. Out the door you go, or we're gonna have a meltdown, both dad and kids, before this thing's all over and done. But yeah, no, I'm glad all my bad stories are with my kids, or all your bad stories are with my kids. That makes no, but he did turn it off, the whole thing.
Oh, that was the best. And I said, Kevin, man, what's wrong? Kevin, stop him. Kevin goes, stop him for what? Like, this is what they do. And he waits on him to almost beat the game, shut it off, start over.
Yep. Yeah. That's just being brothers, I guess. So they are legends in their own minds for sure. We've got more to come. That's take 3. We do it every day. This time we'll come back all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Matt Smith set to join us in about 15 minutes. Matt Smith will join us coming up in about 10 minutes here on 3 and Out. We'll talk some college football with him. But an anniversary of sorts there, BJ, a 10-year anniversary of Russell Wilson's grad transfer to Wisconsin, where he really, he was good at NC State. BJ, I don't know if anybody looked at Russell Wilson coming out of NC State and saying, this is a guy that's going to be a all-pro. I think a lot of people thought maybe he was going to go the baseball route coming out of NC State. Then he goes to Wisconsin, has a great year, and obviously the rest is history with Russell Wilson. And ESPN Adam Rittenberg put the top 10 out of the last decade. You see guys like Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts. I mean, these are graduate transfers, not the just straight transfer portal guys, but graduate transfer guys, Gardner Minshew, Jake Coker, who have gone on and had great 1 years at their next stops when they moved on, or 2 years in some cases, like Joe Burrow.
And obviously, Joe Burrow is a story you can't make up. I mean, you're talking about the statistical standard now, countless records, national championship, undefeated, #1 overall pick, Heisman, the just PlayStation video game numbers that are hard to believe, 7 touchdown passes, 400 yards in the first half of a college football playoff game. I mean, Joe Burrow is a legend, but I'm really glad to see Jalen Hurts get some respect as well, because what he did is truly incredible. I mean, one of the most unparalleled careers in the history of college football when you think about taking 2 teams to the college football playoff. And I don't think people even still fully appreciate all that he accomplished during his career. He scored 124 touchdowns during his career. You only get 4 years now. He scored 124 touchdowns, and that was passing with 80, rushing with 43, even had a receiving touchdown. And you know what Jalen Hurts did at Alabama was incredible. You go back and look at his final year at Oklahoma, and it was just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Ben, when have you heard of anything like this? He had over 3,800 yards passing and 32 touchdowns and 1,300 yards rushing and 20 touchdowns. So he was basically an All-American quarterback and an All-American running back for a team that made the college football playoff. And, his leadership throughout his career, incredible. Obviously came back, had the big impact performance against Georgia in the SEC championship at the end of his career with Alabama. But you're talking about, of course, the #1 guy in Joe Burrow, but Jalen Hurts is right up there too, one of the best players ever in college football.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, achieved something in college football that's very, very hard to do. That's being beloved by both teams he played for, by both fan bases. He did it the right way at Alabama. Obviously, he wished it could have ended up at Alabama, but when you look at what he was able to do, I mean, he ended up losing the job to a guy in Tua. But something you said, BJ, Tua came in and won the national championship 1 year. He was able to come in for Tua the next year to win the SEC championship, and then he moved on to Oklahoma, and obviously the rest is history when he went over there. I think that Jalen Hurts is the best of college football because he represents the best of college football. He's a guy that understands what being a true teammate is, and he's a competitor, at the end of the day. But BJ, I thought you was going to go with your boy Gardner Minshew. I mean, when you look at what he did at ECU, and he moves on, to Washington State. I mean, to have a beloved fan base with all the mustaches, and got to play, at Washington State, with Coach Mike Leach. I think that when you look at what some of these guys able to do, like a Gardner Minshew, who started a nice trend for himself, obviously, in college, Jalen Hurts, for whom shows that I could do it at 2 schools without making waves, and a guy in Joe Burrow that when you put the right player in the right scheme with the right coordinators, with the right player, with the right teammates, he can go out there and have a banner year. So grad transfers, when it's done right with the right scheme, these guys can go out there and light it up.
Yeah, I think that's what we've seen in the last 10 years or so with some of these guys. You can get it right. Used to be grad transfers. BJ was like, okay, we got a freshman coming in that really needs to play, and hey, it's been real, and you go play somewhere else just to finish out. We've seen it in the last 10 years. Look at some of those guys that immediately transfer, and like they're the guy at a big time program where they could come in and compete. Jake Coker, I think they went right to the playoffs with Jake Coker. The first Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, those are guys that jumped right in and they didn't miss a beat, and teams went out and were able to land them in the transfer. It's amazing that really with grad transfers, that used to not be the case. You'd see guys go in, it's like, hey, I'm going to grad transfer and, I'm going to go finish up at, Louisiana Tech or something. Now you're seeing guys grad transfer to contenders where they can step in and play and also compete right away for a big deal there, a big national championship or a playoff spot.
Yeah, they're key playmakers. They're team leaders. They're not only bridge guys, as you said. Sometimes maybe you get a veteran quarterback to try to give your freshman or an inexperienced quarterback some more time. But these are essentially elite recruits. 5 stars that you can get in to come in and lead the way. You mentioned Jake Coker from Florida State to Alabama. I believe was from Alabama out of high school, went to Florida State, and ended up going back to Alabama. Won a national championship. One of my favorite guys on this list, and it's a good list, kind of laying out the quarterbacks that have had success via the grad transfer route, is Ryan Finley at NC State. NC State has quietly become kind of quarterback U, and a lot of guys in the league. Ryan Finley's been in the NFL for a couple of years, but comes over from Boise State to NC State, helps Dave Doran, helps that program get to that 8, 9, 10 win plateau and kind of move forward, take another step in the ACC. And now you look at NC State and you look at a program that on paper is probably the second best team in the division in the Atlantic behind Clemson. And I think Ryan Finley coming over from Boise State, being the starter for a couple of years, really helped lay that foundation and kind of stabilize that program and help that program move forward. And even at the Group of 5 level, I know Brady White was at Arizona State, transfers over to Memphis, help Mike Norvell have a lot of success. Obviously, Mike Norvell goes from Memphis to Florida State, but Memphis has been one of those programs. They were in a New Year's Six Bowl, played Penn State a couple of years ago in the Cotton Bowl, I believe. So you're talking about Brady White going from Arizona State to Memphis and still playing on a national stage in terms of one of the biggest bowl games in the country. So yes, the transfer route via the grad transfers has changed college football, but I think been especially at the quarterback position.
Yeah, and you always got to have a barometer, right? You always want to, if I'm a guy that's potentially thinking about, a grad transferring to another school, I want to be able to know that it's been done and it's been done at a high level. Not going to have a better resume than what you was able to do with a guy like Joe Burrow. But to me, I think the guy that stands out is going to be Jalen Hurts, because the thing is, you left Alabama, people thinking, oh, well, where is he going to go? Well, he went to another powerhouse in Oklahoma and didn't. And I kind of showed everybody what was kind of like the knock on him. BJ and Kevin was kind of gun shy at Alabama, threw the ball, but not the way they wanted to. Go to Oklahoma, you're going to have to throw the ball, because sometimes, the scores are going to be 56 to 54 to be able to get the win. But I'm very, very impressed with Jalen Hurts. He's a guy, like I said, did it the right way. And to have it at the G5 and the P5 level, having guys finding a way to continue their careers and show that, look, something we talked about too, Kevin, when you talk about the transfer portal, I got a guy that's been acclimated to college. And now I just got to show him a different system. He knows college football. Just got to get him acclimated to this system. And when you get a guy that's been through it and understand how to get it done, you can bring him into your system for 1 year, maybe 2. You got a chance to go out there and make some noise.
Yeah, I think this is going to be interesting to see now that the just transfer portal is out there. How is the grad transfer a big deal anymore, BJ? Do you think that's still a vital piece, or is it simply, hey, instead of getting a guy for 1 year, you might be able to get a guy with 2 years if you just go into the grad transfer, or instead the grad transfer route, just a straight transfer portal with as many guys that are still sitting in there that are out there to be eligible to transfer.
Yeah, I think just the transfer route, and I think for a lot of national programs now, the goal with quarterback recruiting is kind of multifold, right? It's try to get your 4 or 5 star freshmen to come in, and if there's, as been said, a star quarterback out there, go out there and possibly bring in a veteran as well. So you kind of have multiplied the quarterback recruiting market.
Going to be interesting to watch how this continues to unfold there as the use of transfers and just in general continue. But 10 years ago today, the Russell Wilson grad transfer to Wisconsin, and the rest is history there for Russell Wilson. We'll come back. We'll talk some college football with Matt Smith, SouthernPigskin.com. It's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. College football, ever-changing landscape out there with all that's happened in just the last couple of months in college football. And joining us here to talk with us from SouthernPigskin.com, Matt Smith joins us here on 3 and Out. Matt, welcome. How are you?
Hello, guys. Doing well. Yeah, pretty newsy couple weeks for late June in the college sports or the college football world at least, and sure beats what we were talking about this time last year with regards to college football.
Oh, absolutely. And Matt, along those lines, I just wanted to get your thoughts because I know you are a college football purist on some levels. You weren't necessarily in favor of a expanded playoff, and I know you didn't necessarily like the 4-team playoff. But as we keep expanding, as we keep adding more money to it, you get potentially money for going to class with the new Supreme Court ruling and some other things. Do you think we'll still have the same feel around college football? I don't mean like will people watch, but do you think it'll still have that collegial feel that people get when they watch this stuff on Saturday, or will it begin to feel maybe like something else, more like pro football potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I think our generation, maybe even the younger generation, just kind of accepts the way it is. Some of us might have a more nostalgic feel to what it once was, but I think we accept kind of the dark side of college football, whether it's just the black market for paying players, what's going to happen next week when we're going to see college players tweet out links to buy their merchandise. Get ready for that on July 1st. If you follow any players, there's going to be a lot of that coming out. And I think we just accept that it's just more a professional environment, not necessarily in how the programs go about their business. Say the Alabama football machine is professional, but that's kind of a different sense of that word. But I still think the rivalries, the tailgating, the getting together with your buddies, is still going to play a major role in what separates college football from the NFL, even as the two get married, both in scheme, and just kind of how they go about their business in terms of preparation. So I still think we're going to see a difference there. And again, I just think our generation and the ones below us are just going to have to accept that. And I think for the most part they do. I don't really see anything that's happened or is about to happen changing the sport stance as being the number 2 sport in the country right now.
And Matt, obviously the Supreme Court ruling with regards to the NCAA, we still have probably more questions than answers with that moving forward. Do you think the NCAA as an entity looks substantially different in terms of how it operates in 5 years and 10 years beyond?
Well, I mean, I think they got certainly caught with their pants down over the last year or so, just their complete lack of preparation for this NIL stuff, which is why we're seeing them kind of scramble, them passing the buck to the other schools and just saying, hey, you guys are going to need to self-police this until either we come up with something or there's a federal bill, because obviously you're not going to have certain states allowing it and then have the NCAA then press or do investigations on schools in other states where there's not a bill going to effect next week. So, I mean, I think most of us that follow the sport at all knew they were very discombobulated in terms of how they manage things. And I think everyone who, might not pay as close attention to college sports, but is into the politics, the Supreme Court, and things like that, saw just how inept they've been over the past couple of years with what came out earlier this week. So, in terms of their status as an organization, they need to keep running the basketball tournament the way they run it, keep making that thing profitable, and they'll be fine. They've kind of been hands off for college football, as we know, at least in terms of how the champion is crowned. That's been out of the NCAA's hands for pretty much the duration of the sport. So I don't see much changing. I don't think there's a lot of confidence anywhere in the NCAA. I don't think that's a whole lot different than what we've seen over the last 3 to 5 years from how they operate in Indianapolis there.
And man, with everything kind of seemed to happen at once, though. Like we knew that name and image likeness was coming, right? Like we knew at a certain point they were going to have to do something. Then the Supreme Court comes out and they have their ruling when you talk about being able to benefit from just going to class and educational benefits. I mean, and then you're talking about a potential 12-game, 12-team playoff. I don't see it changing college, as we know it, but did you see all these like shifts coming, as soon as they did, or I guess like kind of like almost at the same time?
No, I didn't. I mean, I think obviously July 1st, 2021 has been a key date for name, image, and likeness going back to, I'd say 18 months ago was maybe when some of this stuff started getting passed. And obviously you need pretty much a year ramp up to get that going. So we knew this was coming. Obviously the playoff thing caught us somewhat off guard, at least in how quickly and the size of it going from 4 to 12 in 2023, presumably, instead of to 8 in 2026, which I think was the overwhelming clubhouse favorite in terms of the next move in terms of the playoff. And then Monday, I think on the surface, not a lot of changes there. I think we all agree those are probably positive moves, open up some more job internship type opportunities for the athletes. I know technology, computers can be paid for the students that need them. Great. I think we're all on board with that. In terms of where this goes from here, I think Justice Kavanaugh's really excoriating the NCAA and his lone opinion that he wrote separately in the Supreme Court ruling. I think that raised some eyebrows, but we still have Title IX. And I think any talk about this conversation in terms of a true free market for players, I think you have to juxtapose that with Title IX, because those two things just simply cannot exist. Knowing that one sport and then a second sport, men's basketball, are going to be the dominant leaders in terms of a free market, and you're never going to get gender equity there, which is what Title IX has strived for over the last 50 years. So I don't think we're there yet. So I think that's probably years away. In terms of anything for a potential free market, I just don't see how it works at all with Title IX. But they did open some doors to at least have those conversations, go through some lawsuits. We know how long that legal process is. If you ask me in 10 years, is it possible? Yeah, but I think we'll start seeing a pushback on the other side about the good things, about players not getting paid and how much it benefits your track athletes that are only going to college because or they couldn't pay for college without a track scholarship, and how much that's helped them. We don't hear much about that with all the focus on football and basketball. But I think we'll start seeing maybe kind of a turnaround there as this fight drags on. But it's going to be ugly. But again, I just think the responses to what we heard from the Supreme Court on Monday, I don't see how you can discuss that without the overwhelming shadow of Title IX lingering.
Yeah, Matt, I think that's kind of interesting, because I know we did the playoff expansion in a couple of years to 12, which is going to allow more access. I feel like as a sport, you took a step or two forward and then a couple of steps back, where you said, hey, we're going to expand it and have more access. But then on the side of that, we're going to bring in name, image, likeness. And now the Supreme Court has said, unlimited educational benefits to athletes. Obviously, the schools with more financial capability and resources are going to benefit greatly from that versus the schools that don't have the same kind of resources, which kind of puts us back to square one, doesn't it?
Right. I think we've heard the impact on parity discussions for both of these things, the playoff and the name, image, and likeness. I don't see much. I think the dominant teams will continue to dominate. It will be interesting to see with the NIL stuff what approach the schools and the players are taking. My opinion is it's going to be a lot through social media and merchandise type stuff. I don't see necessarily where you're going to have a lot of advertisements, say, hey, Ben Troop is advertising for the Chipotle on University Avenue in Gainesville, and he gets on the radio ad and said, when the training table doesn't satisfy me, I go to Chipotle for a chicken burrito on University Avenue. I don't think those are going to be very common. I think that market's going to be somewhat soft. I think it's going to be a lot more through social media ads, through merchandise. We've already seen some players kind of leak their designs that they're going to release next week. And I think that favors the big schools, because you could probably be the 12th, 15th best player on Alabama. You're going to have more Twitter followers than the best football player at Kentucky. That's just the way it is. So that, in theory, would open up higher revenue streams for that. So I don't believe the parity aspect is going to benefit the sport at all. It's been top-heavy for pretty much all our lifetimes, and long before that as well. So I'm interested to see what these schools and players come up with. But I don't think it benefits, it narrows the gap between the haves and the have-nots in the sport. I still think there's a wide gap. The top schools are the most prepared for this because they have the most resources to prepare for this. And I think we'll see that probably come to fruition as the thing takes flight next week.
Matt, I want to ask you a hypothetical about the expanded college football playoff. And I don't know that many people are picking this or expecting this, but let's say in a couple of years, Cincinnati or Central Florida get in, as we're going to have be a regular thing moving forward, and they win. And I don't mean win one game, but win the national championship. Will college football at large celebrate that, or will there be people going, well, this isn't kind of what I envisioned when we expanded? We wanted access, but we don't want this team winning the national championship. What do you think the response to that would be?
I mean, I would hope they celebrate it because it would require a lot more work and be a lot more merit based than, say a team snuck into Cincinnati in 2009. I think they finished number 3. Say Texas had lost that game to Nebraska that they won on a field goal. Cincinnati sneaks into the national title game, and a key player for Alabama, say Greg McElroy, sprains an ankle in the first quarter. Alabama's back up. I don't know if it was McCarron at the time or someone else, but just came in and couldn't play. Cincinnati wins the national title. That would have felt somewhat tainted. If Cincinnati, even if they would somehow get a bye, they still have to win 3 games against really good teams. And if they would somehow do that, I think you have to celebrate that. That'd be an incredible achievement. And I think the one possibility with expansion is to see not a dynasty, but to see a place like UCF, Boise State, Cincinnati really rise up and be a contender because they know they can get in every year as the dominant team. And right now, as we've talked about, it takes kind of a good season the year before, a perfect schedule to be able to get to that spot. So I think you could see one true dominant program arise from the G5 because of this. Obviously we've seen it cycle through Boise, through UCF, through Memphis, probably right now at Cincinnati for the next year or two. I think we could see one team kind of usurp the role as true top dog from the group of 5 conferences because of that. If they have the right coach, have the right talent acquisition, get the right players, and I think we could see that happen. But yeah, I don't know why we wouldn't celebrate that because they certainly would have earned it. It's going to be a lot harder for teams outside the top 5, top 6 to win under this format because you just can't sneak in by going undefeated, getting into a one game shot in the BCS title game and just have things go your way. Now you got to do that 3 or 4 times. And that's why I think this format probably benefits the Alabamas, the Clemsons of the world, where you do lose a game or two. Say Clemson last year, say they had lost that Boston College game that when Trevor Lawrence didn't hurt, and then they lost Notre Dame the next week. They're still going to get in the 12-team playoff, and they'd have been healthy, of course, and they could have made a run and win it all. So I think that's way more likely than a team like Penn State who goes 10-2. Getting hot and gets blown out by Ohio State in October, getting hot and winning 4 games in December and January. I don't see that happening, but I think it could benefit one of the big boys who just has a key injury or a couple tough losses here or there. But yeah, I know that was a long-winded answer, but to your point, absolutely, you would celebrate that because they would have to earn it way more than they would under a 2 or even a 14 format.
And man, when it's all said and done, what's gonna make I guess like college football at least seem more even? 12 teams get a chance to make the final playoff, or name and image likeness.
I would say the playoff because college football fans are just so eternally optimistic that their team can compete for the national title. When in reality, there's probably 5 teams going into most years, at least in the current structure, that can actually compete. But they have that carrot hanging out there now with the 12-team playoff. And that's going to keep them engaged, even if they're 5-2 in late October. They're not going to throw in the towel and just say, "Forget it, I don't care about trying to go to the Citrus Bowl" or something like that. So, as I said, I don't think NIL will have a large impact on parity really either way. I mean, you can't have much less parity in the sport than we've seen over the last 6 or 8 years. But I certainly don't think we'll see more. So to that extent, I say the playoff, but that's because of probably a false hope it's going to give these teams where they think, oh, we just got to get in, we can get hot and win the national title. When again, as I said, I don't see that really happening. I think the elite teams will still rise to the top in any format, whether it be 2, 4, 8, or 12.
Matt Smith, SouthernPigskin.com, our guest here on 3 and Out. Matt, always a pleasure. Have a great weekend. We'll talk soon.
You too, guys. Thank you, fellas.
Appreciate it. Matt Smith joining us here, SouthernPigskin.com. And always fun to chat college football with him. It's again, so much has changed in just the past week. More will be changing next week with states, including this one, with the name, image, likeness laws coming on the books starting next Thursday. And as we've talked, there's already several Georgia players with deals set to go midnight July 1. So we will see those go into effect nearly immediately once that happens coming up next week. We've got more to come. 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here on this Friday. Hawks and Bucks game 2 tonight. Braves and Reds game 2 of their 4-game series tonight. That one didn't go. Hey, I saw, to make you feel better, BJ, I know you're throwing your hands up. Tucker Davidson goes on the 60-day IL with the what was it, forearm tightness, and all of a sudden he's on a 60-day IL. And I saw they put Alex Jackson on the 60-day IL. So when you're talking about catching help, looks like you're going to be riding the William Contreras and Kevin Smith train for a while there. So no help coming soon from the injury department, it would appear, if you're a Braves fan, unfortunately.
Well, I was going to ask you this quickly. I know you've moved a couple of guys back. How do you think Brian Snitker has handled kind of the last couple of days from a staff standpoint?
You've basically done all you can do, man. I mean, it's like people get mad at Brian Snitker's like, where's all the pitching? It's like, well, you've played 7 games in what, 4 days, 5 days? You're not built to do that necessarily. Did I get that right? 7 games in 5 days? Did I mess it up? You're laughing at me. So
no, I'm trying to think. You had 2 one day. You had 2. That's 4 in 2 days. So 3 in 4 days, 5 and yeah. I mean, yeah.
So I mean, you're not. I think you're getting back to the point where if you can finagle this another day, you might start getting guys back on full rest. And there's only so much you can do to try to do that and not wear out your bullpen. Like, I know people are like Jesse Chavez, who actually didn't pitch really all that bad for what you asked him to do. Sean Newcomb pitched okay, I guess. I mean, that's all you can do. You're gonna run into a game or two like that in the Major League Baseball season where it doesn't line up for you, BJ. And I know the Nationals, who have gotten hot, they've got games to make up. The Mets have got some games to make up from way back early in the season. So you could see a case where DeGrom and all them get caught on short rest, and they are kind of messed up on their pitching. And all you can do is try to ride the wave out until you get things back on track. And I think for Brian Snitker, I mean, I'm sorry if you're like, I could do a better job than Brian Snitker. Okay, Acuna's not playing. Give me an outfield that's decent.
I mean,
you can only put out there who you got. Final hour of 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. So much to get to still here on the show, including we'll look at the 12-team playoff. Gus Malzahn had some comments there in regards to his team, Central Florida, and the college football playoff. We'll ask the guys if he's selling the dream or if it's a reality that could happen in college football. We'll get to that. And, of course, Hawks and Braves, big games tonight. Certainly Atlanta game 2 with the Bucks coming up later tonight. BJ and Ben and everybody talking about Trae Young and what he's done in the playoffs, including one Reggie Miller. He said, quote, "It's his confidence. It's what I love most about him. People say borderline cocky. I don't mind that. I like a guy who's confident in his skills. People have got to understand it takes what it takes not only a professional athlete, my word, I can't read today, but the skill set Trae has, the shooting, the dribbling, the teardrops, the floaters, runners. That's countless hours in the gym. I respect that. I've been there. I know that there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into that. I like the ego he has. It's something fun to watch." And he went on to talk about wearing the black hat, being that villain of teams out there in the NBA playoffs. Is Trae a black hat guy? Is he a villain? Is he a guy that everybody's going to hate on at the end of this thing? I know he shushed the crowd at Madison Square Garden. He seems to play really well in opposing buildings thus far in the playoffs. Do you think he's a guy that you see be that you love him when he's on your team, you hate him when he's on everybody else's team?
Well, I just think he's fun to watch, and people can respond however they want, but this is a guy with confidence. This is a guy with conviction. This is a guy that embraces the stressors of the sport, right? I mean, even for, I would imagine, I don't know this, but I would imagine even for, some of the best athletes in the world, the spotlight of everybody watching, the spotlight of everybody kind of anticipating the miss or the mistake or the meltdown, just everybody talking about you, everybody looking at you. And if you're Trae Young, I think sometimes we forget that he's 22 years old, right? You're not talking about a guy that's been in the league for 7-8 years. You're talking about a guy that's really young, and he embraces all of that, the responsibility, the pressure, the expectations, the boos. You're getting the best defender from the other team every night. You're probably hearing it constantly, from media, from fans, from opponents. I mean, and to embrace that and to welcome it and to sort of celebrate it. Like, I know a lot of people will say, "Oh man, Trae Young, he's reacting to every shot." No, he's not. He's playing basketball and he's enjoying what he's doing. He's stepping up to the spotlight under the bright lights and he's smiling. He's getting the basketball and he's enjoying being in that moment. That's a joy to watch. That is fun to watch. That is inspiring to watch. And I'm sure if you're an opposing fan, right, and you're watching Trae Young, cross somebody up, go to the basket, throw it behind his back to a guy who dunks, and then he turns around and winks at you or gives you a thumbs up or does the bow or does the shimmy. Maybe you're going, "God, I hate that guy," but you love it too. Because this is what we want. Emotion is what makes sports. Energy is what makes sports. And Trae Young, when you're watching sports, when you're watching a game, I don't care what sport it is, there are times where you're really paying attention and you're locked in and you're on the edge of your seat. And there are times where you're kind of walking around and you're eating a sandwich and you're talking with your buddies. Trae Young, you are paying attention. He is captivating. He has your attention. You are watching, you're feeling what he's feeling. And to me, that's how somebody is kind of unique and especially talented at what they do, is when Trae Young has the basketball and he's isolating or he's about to penetrate, you're feeling it. You're feeling that energy. You're anticipating the shot. And to me, it's beautiful. I think he's incredibly fun to watch.
Reggie Miller ain't doing nothing but telling the world what they're watching in real time. Sometimes we don't appreciate what we're seeing in real time because we're trying to find every single thing to say bad about him, every single thing to say negative about him. But I think what he said at the end, Ken, when he said the reason why people cheer and boo is because they respect this game. I'm cheering because I respect it, and I boo because I respect it. Certain guys are momentum guys. Certain guys are, spotlight guys. Like when, certain guys are bright light guys. I believe Trae is all of those things because he embraced being in the Garden. He knew that's Spike Lee right there. Ain't nobody his dad didn't have to say, "How you doing, Mr. Lee? This is Trae." No, he knows that Spike Lee, that's the biggest Knicks fan, in New York Knicks history. When you talk about what he did in the second round I mean, against the Sixers, he know it was a process. He know about Embiid and Simmons. He knows who Doc Rivers is. Y'all going home. And most people are supposed to be given a nickname. It don't matter what my family called me growing up. Some people are calling him the villain. Because think about it, BJ. When he was a rookie, it was all about his hair. He got the blowout. He still got the blowout. I don't know what kind of hairstyle he got, right? But I guarantee you, if people out there getting the Patrick Mahomes, they out there getting the Trey, because he makes you want to be like him. That's the hardest thing to do. Most basketball players are just like football players. You don't remember them. You don't know them when you see them. They've never had a moment. They just played. Who am I talking about? Talking about me. You do not remember me when I was in the NFL. I don't remember me either, but I was blessed enough to be there. I just think for us to be looking at Trae Young, what we are watching is a superstar. BJ, on Second Down today, we were talking about the top 15 players in the NBA. Trae Young might be top 10, depending on who you ask. Out of all those 15 players, 3 of them are still in the playoffs. Not named LeBron, not named KD, not named James Harden, not named Kyrie. It was Kawhi, who's hurt right now. It was PG. It was PG3. I'm sorry, CP3, getting them all mixed up, and Giannis. I just think for me, don't Atlanta deserve this? Like, don't Atlanta deserve a superstar who was embracing the moment, who was already counted out, not because of how he played, but because of who he got traded for? And he's doing it in a city that's still a major market. It ain't Los Angeles. It ain't New York. But at the same time, he's one of the last 4 teams standing. He's going up against a 2-time regular season MVP. And I think for us, we're getting a chance to see this guy blossom, like BJ, like you said, 22 years old. Most guys coming to their own in what, year 6, 7. He's in year 3 or 4, and I love it because at the end of the day, he embraces being a villain because he knows y'all fans don't control one thing. If they can't stop me on the court, what you think y'all doing off the court? We deserve it. I'm happy he's with the Hawks, man. Couldn't be happening to a better dude, and no greater relationship than every time after every game, home or away, they go straight to the stands because Dego is there in the stands waiting on him.
Well, I mean, again, I think he's a captivating story, BJ. I think when you hear Reggie Miller's comments about, who wears the white hat and all that, I mean, Michael Jordan, people liked him, but everywhere he went, it was, hey, we're here for the Michael Jordan show. Like, you go, and I think Shaq, Kobe, kind of the same way. LeBron James, depending on who you talk to, can kind of be the black hat guy, right? It's like people love LeBron James when he's on their team, not so much when he's on the other team. He cries all the time and this and that. Reggie Miller was a black hat guy. Why? Because he's over there throwing up choke signs and all that, and he was a good player on top of that and knocking down game-winning shots. I don't know if that's Trae Young necessarily. I mean, it's fine. I think you look in a number of sports. Mike Trout might be the best player. I think he's a white hat guy. Nobody really has beef with Mike Trout. Bryce Harper, black hat guy, because people, when he's not on your team, hate him. And when he's on your team, you're like, man, this guy's pretty good. Yeah, that's what they've been saying. So I don't know where Trae Young falls down in the, wearing the white hat or the black. I think right now, though, he is developing his own in this playoffs, because I think mostly, unless you were a fan of Oklahoma or you were a diehard Atlanta Hawks fan, up until about the last 2 months, you might have known Trae Young was in the league, but you didn't know he was doing this. I would be willing to bet, looking at what he's doing this team. So I know he's had some of those moments where he's like, I'll be the bad guy. I don't care. And I think it's just that killer instinct that is going to resonate with people as well.
Well, I think he's a guy that is willing to, again, step up on that stage. If you're taking the last shot, if you're taking the big shot, you're not going to make all of them. Jordan, Kobe, LeBron. I mean, you're not going to make all of them. But I think Trae Young, despite his inexperience, despite his youth, is looking around going, okay, nobody thinks we can do it. I'll be the guy that says we're going to do it. I'm going to play like we're going to do it. And if we do it, I'll be there smiling. If we don't, I'm still going to be there riding for my guys, thinking that we can play with anybody. And I think that energy is incredibly captivating. I go back to that. I've told you guys, for me, part of the reason I like watching football is because it's just constant energy, constant back and forth, constant talking. There's a hit, a guy's flexing, somebody's getting up, you're patting a guy on a helmet, you're bouncing around. And I think, Trae Young is one of those athletes that not only the proficiency and the production is amazing, but just, I mean, Ben, you were talking about it, man. He's fearless. I mean, everything about him, man. You're not really the biggest guy. You're penetrating. You're taking body shots. You're going to the line. You're, again, not a veteran. You know, it's not like you're Ray Allen in your 12th year and you're going to be in the Hall of Fame soon. You're basically a couple of years after 1 year in college, and you're embracing the idea of taking the big shot. You know, closeout game in the Garden. You're playing with confidence and swagger. Game 7 against the number 1 seed in the playoffs. You're the guy that has the ball, you know, crunch time. You're on the free throw line, and you want to be on the free throw line. That's something that I think we as fans watch and we appreciate, and it kind of brings us closer. It brings us in because, look, man, none of us knows what it's like to be able to shoot like that, dribble like that, pass like that. But the competitiveness, the eagerness, the excitement, the joy, the passion he plays with, we all feel that. Man, I know I feel that. And for him to have this success, to Kevin's point, this quickly, you know, a couple of months ago, it was Trae Young. Yeah, he's a good player for, I think, the Hawks. Now it's Trae Young superstar. Could he be one of the 10 best players in the league? It's a testament to his will, his desire, his work ethic, his makeup, and he is spectacular to watch. I mean, he is, again, do I think he goes for 48 again tonight? I don't know. Maybe not. But he's going to be going 100%. He's going to be going 100 miles an hour. He's going to be out there playing confidently, setting the tone for his team. And Ben, what more can you ask?
What we're watching right now is brilliance, basketball brilliance, regardless of what happened with the rest of the series. When little guys play football and they dominate, people are saying, "Well, dude, you have to do it against giants out there. You have to do it against very, very large men." Well, Trae Young is doing it with very, very tall men. But the thing about this, sometimes Trae Young is saying they're just tall. Like they're just bigger than me. But everybody's always been taller and bigger than me. He wasn't big when he was at Oklahoma. He wasn't big when he was growing up. Trae Young game has always been bigger than him. Always. My game has always stood out because they have to. So what we're seeing now is what he's always done. It's almost like, BJ and Kevin, when you're watching a guy like Trae Young, you say, we say, man, could you imagine if he was 6'6"? I know, right? But he's 6'1". So the average person walking around in life is not, Trae Young is that size, right? But yet, and somebody saw Trae Young and said, that dude right there, yeah, he scored 48 points. In his first time in the NBA. No, forget that. He scored 48 points in the NBA. There are guys in the NBA that won't score 48 points their NBA career. They just run around. I'm just saying it's crazy. And I think I just go back to appreciate you. Kevin, you said, maybe he's not the white hat. Maybe he's the black hat. Maybe he's the gray hat. Maybe he's a mixture of both. Sometimes he wears the white one. Sometimes he wears the black one. You can't deal with him no matter what hat he got on. White hat, no hat, bald head. The man is the truth. And I think that sometimes we're expecting him to be something else, right, BJ? But think about this. What if he did score 48? He's averaging double-digit assists. He is an unselfish superstar. That's two words that you don't usually hear together. Guys want to play with him. They want him to have the last shot. They don't mind deferring to him because he's going to make sure he get him involved. We're watching the tree. Atlanta has a superstar on his hands, and his name is Trae Young. Get with it or get lost, because I'm telling you, he's putting the world on notice. They said it right. When you're good at something, you tell them. When you're great at something, they tell you. Didn't Reggie Miller just tell us? Reggie Miller, one of the greatest to ever do it. We might want to take notice to one of the greatest players and shooters in NBA history, talking about the next up-and-comer.
Yeah, and again, tonight, game 2, chance to further that legacy if the Hawks can get it done on the road once again and go back to Atlanta Sunday night up 2-0 would be a whole different world for the Hawks at that point in the series. We'll talk more about that coming up in just a little bit, but Gus Malzahn sounding off on a 12-team playoff and had some interesting comments about where he thinks UCF fits in that picture. We'll get to that next. 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network.
Stanley Ramsey from Georgia Southern. I'm listening to 3 and Out with PJ, Ben, and Kevin.
Well, Gus Malzahn is a fan of the 12-team playoff. I think a lot of us are. But Gus Malzahn recently coming out saying, look, hey, it's a game changer. Hey, we'll have a shot every year. Even saying, quote, I really believe we're going to win a national championship in the near future, even though they already did, right? But he also said 2 of the last 4 years, UCF would have been in that final 12 of this new format. So obviously, BJ, is he selling the dream, Ben? Is he selling the dream? Or do you think he actually believes they're going to win a national championship? Because I tend to fall in a little bit more with a guy like Brooks Austin we had on earlier in the week, where I think it is beneficial for the smaller G5 schools. I also think it's hard to win 4 games in a row against the top 5, against the top 12, essentially, to win a national championship. I think the 4 teams that get buys are going to have a huge advantage in this thing. But does Gus Malzahn believe it? Or do you think it's obviously something he has to say as a head coach, like, hey, we're going to win a national championship here in the near future?
Well, I don't think you're going to answer a question like this. Hey, coach, do you think you guys can win a new a national championship with the new playoff format? No, I don't think we have any chance. I mean, do I think he believes it? Yes. Well, I mean, he's at a program that a couple of years ago won an NCAA recognized national championship. He's at a program that has been in the national top 10. And I'll say this about the 12-team playoff. You guys know that I think there's at least a chance that you see more regular success from G5 programs. You know, we've had 7 New Year's 6 matchups since the playoff was introduced between P5 teams in the top 10 and G5 teams, and the G5 has gone 3-4. So the P5 has won 1 more game, and if you think back, Georgia kicked Jack Podlesny kicking a game-winning field goal. I mean, a couple of those games were right down to the wire. And I'm not sitting here saying that I think Central Florida, I would pick them tomorrow to beat Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, Ohio State in consecutive order. But this is what I'm saying, because that's the counter I hear to this, right? What I hear from everybody is, well, there's no way Central Florida could beat Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma in consecutive games. Well, who can? I mean, I would think Alabama probably can. I would think Clemson probably can. But what I'm kind of struggling with is you never hear that said about other teams that are in the P5, right? You always hear, oh man, UCF could never win.
Hold on. Iowa State would win 4 games in a row against the top 12.
No, but you haven't heard that in the last couple of days or last couple of weeks. Like, every argument is the 12-team playoff is nice, but come on, man, Cincinnati and Central Florida aren't going to win 4 straight games. Well, for example, just to go back to last year, Texas A&M finished number 5 in the country. Texas A&M was the first team out of the playoff. They lost to Alabama by 28. So if you're sitting here and telling me that Central Florida and Cincinnati and Memphis aren't going to win 4 or 5 games or 3 or 4 games in a row, okay. But all I'm saying is, if you're going to say that about them, say that about everybody else, because college football has been dominated by basically 2 or 3 programs. And to your point, I think you've even said this, Kevin, I think that the opportunity of advancing to the playoff being more widespread will create a little more equitability in recruiting. I think it'll take a couple of years, but do I think theoretically that a Central Florida could have as good of a chance as a team like Texas A&M or a team like North Carolina or Miami or a team like Iowa State? Of course, yes. Do I think that Central Florida or Cincinnati or Memphis would have the same chance to win a national championship, the same likelihood as Alabama? No, but that's my point. My point is, you wouldn't sit here and say that Iowa State is going to beat Oklahoma, Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson in 4 games in a row, because they wouldn't. But the thing is, nobody's saying that. You're only applying that lack of a likelihood to the G5 schools. And to me, yeah, I'm not trying to pick on any program in particular, but to me, when you have a dramatic outlier like 2017 UCF, again, 2017 UCF beat 4 nationally ranked teams. They beat Auburn in the Sugar Bowl right after Auburn just beat Alabama. In their conference championship game, they scored 62 points. Do I think that UCF team would have as good of a chance as theoretically Texas A&M from last year or Iowa State from last year to win a national championship in this format? Yes. Yes, because that UCF team was one of the best teams in the country. I'm not sitting here saying that if Memphis goes 8-4 this year, but wins the AC and gets in, that I think they would beat Alabama, then beat Clemson, then beat Oklahoma. No, I'm not saying that. But do I think that there's a chance? Yes. Would I pick them with the same regularity that I would pick, a team that just won the SEC with? No. But I think if everybody has convinced themselves that every year the G5 schools are just going to show up, be happy, and get blown out, not only do I think that's not going to happen, it hasn't happened. We've had 7 college football playoff New Year's 6 matchups, and the games have been split 3-4, 4-3. So I think they're going to be a factor, G5 schools moving forward. Absolutely.
Gus Malzahn is saying what he's supposed to say. Gus Malzahn is saying things like we would have been in the last 2 of the last 3 years or what may have you. And when you said I think we got a shot to win the national championship in the coming years, I mean, what else is he supposed to say? For me, BJ, when you say they got a chance, of course they got a chance. I mean, Cincinnati got a chance. I mean, Memphis was real good one year. They got a chance, right? But the circumstances are definitely changing. Meaning, UCF got to be at the top of their game every single year, to even be able to even get consideration. When they beat Auburn in the Peach Bowl, they lost the next year against LSU. So for me, I just think that when you're looking at the fact that when we talk about chances, Kevin, we talk about chances, BJ. Of course, they got a chance, but this is the thing. I keep going back to what people say about Georgia. If Georgia keeps banging at the door, they're going to eventually kick it down. Somebody goes, man, why can't we what is this door reinforced with? Oklahoma, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama. That's what's behind it. That's what's behind it. Then you start talking about the fact that if it's 12 teams, I mean, you'll get a Texas A&M. You may get a Florida. You may get a Penn State. Dare I say, you may get a Michigan. You may get a USC. I mean, you may get an Oregon. So I'm not saying that, they don't got a chance. But these teams that's going to be getting in with UCF, it's going to be their first time ever getting in too. So you're going to have a lot of new teams, but the P5 going to always get the benefit of that because it's the P5. The G5 is always going to get, the short end of the stick because it's the G5. I just think that for me, a UCF team for 1 year or 2 years, there was a feel-good story, right? When they lost to LSU, that was it. And I'm not saying they're not a good program. I just know that when these coaches start saying we got a shot to win a national championship, I mean, I hear you. And that's what they're supposed to say. I don't expect them to say anything different. But for me, if there's going to be a power shift, if it's going to be 12 teams, it's not going to come from the G5. Not because they're not good enough, but they're not going to put more in than the P5 school. So yeah, I think Gus Malzahn got some, and people go, why did Gus Malzahn go to UCF? You don't think he ain't know something was coming? Gus Malzahn ain't crazy. I'm going to UCF because I think I can continue this. No, I think something is brewing. So I'm just saying, a friend of mine, a friend of mine just became a principal at a high school in our hometown. I knew before everybody else knew, but I ain't say nothing. Because if I spill the beans, the surprise party ain't as good. I ain't say a word. I still congratulated him. And he ain't never knew I knew. So for me, I say that to say about UCF. UCF, BJ, for 2 years, they was that team, right? They got to continue to be the best team in that conference every year. If you a P5 school, you don't got to be the best team in your conference. You just got to look good against the best team in your conference and be the second best to still get in. So once again, I'm like Kevin, I got to see it to believe it. All this sounds good. And then when UCF is the 13th team for 3 years in a row, and Malzahn goes like, what's going on? P5s, everybody want to see them. G5s, they got to decide if you're good enough for the world to want to see you play on the big stage.
And again, we'll see. I think that's a developing thing, BJ. I think we'll see how they play in the playoff when you see a team like Central Florida in. Because, again, I know you quoted that they did win. I will be interested to see how it matches up when the stakes are different. When you have a game to move on to play again versus a game. Essentially, that bowl games are. I don't want to go with they don't want to be there, but I do understand that certain guys opt out of bowl games when there's nothing else on the line potentially. And obviously teams like Boise State, Cincinnati, Central Florida, who've had those opportunities, kind of treat those as their proving grounds. Like, hey, we can come here and show that we belong, hopefully to get to the next step. So I'm interested to see how it plays out once the playoff begins. And obviously, I think that excuse, if you want to call it that, BJ, that excuse of, well, we weren't really interested in playing after we didn't get the bowl game we wanted. Well, I'm sorry, you're in the playoffs. If you don't want to be in the playoffs, I don't know what you're like. What are you doing? Like, why are you playing, period? So I think I'll be interested to see how those G5s match up when you got win or go home on the line. And if they win some of those, I think obviously that's good for them. And I think you'll see more of that. How quickly can they get that to where they're in and you're legitimate contender? Because I think the kind of discussion will change around those teams as well, where now it's like, oh, can they win a national championship? I think the initial discussion is, can you win a game? I kind of look at it like Gonzaga basketball. Can you win a game? Check. All right. Can you win 2 games? Check. Are you consistently now in the playoffs seemingly every year and you win a game or so? I think that's more likely the path. I appreciate Gus Malzahn saying, hey, I think we're going to, and you have to say that as a head coach. I think this is going to be a longer process than 3 or 4 years when it's all said and done. So I think, can they get there? Yeah, it's going to be a process, though.
And I guess all I'm saying is to a certain extent. I'm not comparing, kind of top tier P5 schools that haven't quite won a national title to the vast majority or to the G5 at all. But I think if you're saying that we need to see you win in the playoffs first, all I'm saying is, for the most part, that applies to everybody, not named Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State. I mean, even Oklahoma, right? To a certain extent. I mean, what's kind of the talking point from a lot of the national media about Oklahoma? All right, you've made it to the college football playoff. Are you going to win the national title? Are you going to win the national title? What have we said about Georgia? All right, you've made it to the college football playoff. You were right there, but are you going to, how many Dog fans, Kevin, do we talk to that go, why can't we just win the national title? So all I'm saying is, I understand that for a lot of people, you look at UCF or Cincinnati and go, man, they've never been close to a national title, although understand that UCF does have a NCAA recognized national championship. What I'm saying is that for just about every program in the country outside of Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State, that's kind of been the reality the last decade.
You're absolutely right. And what I'm saying is, like with the G5, they'll probably get more scrutiny, but let's take a school in our own state just for giggles, like Georgia Tech. If they get in the playoff 1 year, I think the scenario will be like, well, that's great. Can you win a game? Can you hit? Not necessarily like, hey, can you win the national championship? Okay, you got there. Can you do something now that you got there? Or is it you lost by 30 points and you're out? And how do you sustain that? I think that will be a continuing conversation around G5s and some of these P5 schools that necessarily haven't been in the big picture for a while. Like, I mean, pick anybody. Say,
but I guess let me ask you this, because
somebody like that.
Because I'm not even talking about Georgia Tech, right? Like, I think Georgia Tech, clearly, it's been a minute since they've been competing for a national championship. But if you want to go back to last season's college football playoff final rankings, okay? Well, Notre Dame was obviously there. I mean, how many people, when you talk about Notre Dame, say, yeah, we know you made it through but when are you going to win a game in the playoff? How many people say that? You go down the Texas A&M was 5th. I think Texas A&M's a fantastic program. When's the last time they won a national championship type game? When's the last time they won a college football playoff game? You go further down the list. You had Iowa State in the top 10. When's the last time Iowa State won a national championship type game or won a college football playoff? So I think obviously that same metric exists for like a Georgia Tech, obviously. But what I'm saying is, even when you look in the national top 10, outside of Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State, doesn't that question apply to everybody? Even Oklahoma and Notre Dame. Like, if Oklahoma or Notre Dame make the Final Four this year, what are people going to be saying? What are people going to be saying? They're going to say, well, Oklahoma and Notre Dame are in, but they're not going to win. That's what everybody's going to say. And what I'm asking is, how is it any different for Iowa State, Texas A&M, whoever, Notre Dame? I mean, college football has been completely dominated by a handful of schools. And again, I want to be clear. I know we're getting comments on social media. I'm not saying that I don't think that I would pick UCF to win the national championship. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're telling me that UCF can't win the national title or Cincinnati can't advance in a tournament because we haven't seen it yet, my question to you would be, outside of 3 schools, who have we seen it from?
It's a very good point. TJ Johnson, you said writing in on Facebook, the point of expansion isn't for the UCFs of the world to win. It's so these teams will actually have a chance. I agree. That's the first step. That's why I say it's the process of you got in. Now can you actually do something once you're in?
I mean, and the thing about it is this, BJ. I mean, I look at the NCAA tournament, right? There's something about going to the Sweet 16. But you know what's better than that? The Elite Eight. But you know what? But you know what's the best of all that is the Final Four. So yes, you got the 12. Can you make it? Can you make it to the next round? Then all right, can you make it to the Final Four? Because the thing about it is all right, we got 12 to get down to 4 to get down to 2 to see the eventual. I do agree with what Kevin is saying. People are starting saying, all right, you here? Are you just here? Or you here to move on? And that's how it should be. So, yes, most teams can't beat Clemson. Most teams can't beat Alabama. Most teams can't beat Ohio State. But if your trek is I have to play those teams throughout the regular season, or I get the moniker of being in these conferences with this perception attached to it, that's why you're going to get the benefit of the doubt. So I'm just saying if Vanderbilt is firing their coach because they went over in an all SEC season, you think UCFs of the world are going to get the benefit of the doubt because they made the final 12? No. They're going to say, hey, man, they'll say you a slot filler. So if they start going from there to the next round, potentially the Final Four, now we're talking about something. But we're a long ways away from that. I just think that it does make it so that more teams get an opportunity. But just because you get an opportunity doesn't mean that people are going to celebrate you if you do make it in. People only remember the winners, and life shouldn't be like that. But if people start saying, hey, man, who lost to the Ravens in 2000? People like, who lost to them? Exactly, because you only remember who won. So I do think it's a great recruiting tool. I do think it's great for the overall, reputation of the school. But UCF has a national championship recognized by the NCAA, and they did not win the Natty. I mean, I have a problem with that. And I know Cody sees it different, but I'm just saying, BJ, they gonna be competing for the real one this time. We'll see.
We've got more to come here on 3 and Out. Braves and Reds tonight. Hawks and Bucks, game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals. We're breaking it down next. 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here, 3 and Out on this Friday, heading into a just tremendous weekend out there. Hawks tonight and Sunday night. Chance to take a 2-0 series lead if they can get it done tonight. Braves and Reds. You'd like to see the Braves bounce back, given some dire pitching circumstances, and win a couple of these games of this 4-game series. Try to keep pace in the East. But again, I know it's a struggle, Braves fans, but for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the Braves are struggling, Hawks are winning. There you go. BJ, right? Is that how it works?
That's an interesting thought. Okay, I'm willing to listen, I guess, if you want to explain that. But I did see you have Ronald Acuna back in the lineup tonight. Obviously, the lineup with him in it, totally different. And I think if you have Ronald Acuna in Cincinnati for a couple of days, you're probably going to see some fireworks. So I would expect, my prediction is Ronald Acuna has a big game tonight and a big weekend series.
I hope that Ronald Acuna has a big game tonight, just for the morale of the team. I mean, when you look, think about this, Kevin. You don't got no pitchers. You got guys who are 37 years old who walking through the freaking locker room. People saying, "Hey man, they got this fan in him. How this dude get no? He's pitching tonight." Then Ronald Acuna is not in the lineup. I mean, you need any type of motivation and enthusiasm going into these games. But I give Snit a lot of credit. I mean, when you think about the fact that everything that he has to continue to deal with, I mean, guys have a good game, then they go on the IL. You're dealing with the fact that your superstars dealing with tightness. I think that if this Braves team could just get a big win, and hopefully, we always say this, get a win, and hopefully, one win to turn into 2 wins. I think it's just really just dealing with the adversity of not knowing who's in your lineup. I mean, you're staring out there in the outfield, and you know nobody. Like, nobody out there do you know out there in your outfield, and then we ain't even going to talk about the pitching staff at this point. But I do think that if hopefully that the negative mojo become, is that positive mojo over there, Kevin. When you talk about them Atlanta Hawks, hopefully the Hawks get a big dub. That way come Sunday, they 2-0. But with the Braves, do your best. I mean, Kevin gonna listen, BJ, Kevin gonna go up there and just talk
guys,
to the
team.
Guys,
go out there and just try hard tonight.
Listen to me, guys. Wow. Like, I know.
Okay, but hold on a second, because this is pretty amazing. And Kevin, I want to get your thoughts on this. We're sitting here and we have more confidence in the Atlanta Hawks winning a road game in the Eastern Conference Finals than the Atlanta Braves winning a series against the Reds.
Yes, it's an upside down and crazy world. I was going to speak to that, BJ, while we got 3 or 4 minutes left here. I mean, for all the optimism that people have, you are actually on Loa, who would believe this? On the pessimistic side, Ben, before the show, we were talking, BJ and I, and he goes, well, they won game 1 on the road, so that probably means they're going to lose tonight. So
that's
based on what? But I mean, how you feeling? Because I know Ben feels like, hey, Trae Young does his thing, they're going to win. You are like, oh no, game 2 they're going to lose. I mean,
I just look at the history of how series go, right? Like, of course, I'm rooting for the Hawks and want to see them do well and think they might win. But what I'm saying is, how often in the history of the NBA playoffs have you seen the road team take a 2-0 lead in the Eastern Conference Finals? I'm not sure how many times that's happened. Do I think it'll be close? Yeah. I mean, the Hawks, every game they've been in has been competitive. What I'm saying is, I think the first half of the first quarter is going to be important, because to me, the Bucks are going to come out desperate, going to come out knowing that if you lose this, I mean, you're in big trouble. So I think they're going to come out with everything they got. And I think Atlanta's got to find a way to sort of absorb that, ebb and flow, respond. But the point I'm trying to make is even if you lose tonight, you've already won kind of the opening kind of start to this series. If you go back to Atlanta 1-1, that's a win. That's not a win and a loss. That's a win. You've already switched home court advantage. So what I'm trying to say is, I don't know, like, this is a must win for the Bucks. I think for Atlanta, you just go out and play. And if that can turn into a 2-0 lead, I don't think if that happens, I think it's very fair for us to start saying, hey man, potentially who would be the tougher finals matchup? I mean, you just don't see teams overcome 2-0 going back to the home floor of the other squads. So it's a big game tonight, but all the pressure's on Milwaukee.
Of course, all the pressure's on Milwaukee. And BJ, no, the bigger reason why we got more faith in the Hawks than the Braves, the Hawks look like the Hawks. What's up, Clint? What's up, Trae? What's up? What's up, Hurt with the Hawks? What's up, Acuna? What's up, Ozzie? What's up, Freddie? And that's it. You saw seeing a bunch of dudes walking around the locker room. You don't know who they are because they just got them yesterday. Like, look, man, we trying to fill a roster to play a game. But no, BJ, we have faith in the Hawks because they're in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, they're 3 games away from being in the finals, regardless of who they're playing. I'm gonna stop giving the bit. BJ, you turn real P5-ish when we get to talking about the Hawks. I mean, I'm just saying, like, you don't want to give no credit to these Atlanta Hawks. Come on, man. Like, give credit to the underdog. You are the underdog flag waiver.
I'm with you, man. All right, so are you calling it tonight? You're calling the dub tonight?
Yeah, I'm calling. Listen, yes, I have no dog in this race. Yes, I'm calling the dub because I'm not putting money on it, and I put my money on that.
I like it. I like it.
Hawks and Bucks game 2 tonight. Game 3 will be Sunday night. We'll have that one for you on Sunday evening back in the ATL for that one. And could we be talking about 2-0, 3-0 potentially on Monday when we're back on the show? We'll have to wait and see. If the Hawks play the way they did in game 1, it could be a likely story that they get their Braves and the Reds coming up this weekend. Braves trying to get their pitching staff through. Good old TBA scheduled to pitch on Sunday, and then off day Monday kind of helps get them back on track as well. Appreciate Matt Smith joining us on this Friday. Also, Lawton Swan, Clemson Sports Talk, joined us back in hour number 1. Missed any portion of the show, ESPNCoastal.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, our YouTube page for the podcasted version. It's 3 and Out. We'll see you Monday all across